You can create a lot of content with AI, but the secret sauce is really how do you make it more authentic so that you can start the drip towards a trusting relationship with whoever your audiences are.
Hi, I'm Jayson Manship, host of Authentic and Agentic. Every week on this show, we break down what's happening in AI and what it means for how we work, lead, and live. Join me for a human-focused conversation that keeps you ahead of the curve. This is the Authentic and Agentic podcast on the IBJ Media Network. Welcome to the Authentic and Agentic podcast. I am your host, Jayson Manship, and each week we start the show with a brief overview of the biggest things I see happening in AI. My goal is to keep you informed without overwhelming you. So let's start this week with something everybody probably felt: Black Friday and Cyber Monday. If you're watching the economic news, there's a lot of conversation leading into this weekend to see how consumer spending and overall holiday retail sales might perform. And it looks like it outpaced a lot of people's expectations. Adobe Analytics reported that U.S. online sales hit $11.8 billion on Black Friday, which is up 9.1% from last year. And they specifically noted that more than half of these online sales were driven by AI-powered product discovery. Think about that. Half of 11.8 billion. Now, I could do an entire podcast episode on just this topic. Why were these numbers so high? Is it because of AI? Is it because online deals started earlier with many big e-commerce sites doing Black Friday week? Is it because of tariffs raising cost of goods sold and in turn prices? Companies like Adobe, Amazon, Walmart, and others want to show success in their numbers. It doesn't mean it's not true. It just might be a little inflated. And I find it's always hard to isolate variables like this to determine the true reasons charts like this move. So I tend to make it personal when trying to understand this kind of data. I own a retail business called Moonshot Games. We have 2 physical locations, one in Noblesville and one in Plainfield. We have a live streaming sales platform on YouTube and Twitch, and we do e-commerce business where we ship all over the United States. Well, this year we did beat last year's Black Friday by 82.5%, and most of that was in store. We had a line of over 100 people when I opened the shop at 4 a.m. My awesome daughter Ruby shot a video of that line. I don't know why she came with me at 4 a.m., but she was really excited this year. And we posted that video on our Moonshot Games Facebook page, so go check that out if you get a second. But what worked for us? We spent this year strategically building a strong core business. We leaned into AI to increase our allocations of some of the best products. So we really did have great items available for sale on Black Friday, and customers came out to buy those items. We used dynamic pricing and predictive inventory, and we really fine-tuned our product mix. We got rid of the bad stuff and had the good stuff. In essence, we were intentional and we were successful because we were strategic. Now, foot traffic overall for the weekend was down. I mean, we had bad weather. Small Business Saturday was pretty nasty. But still, this was our second Black Friday, Cyber Monday weekend ever, behind only 2021, where it felt like all of Noblesville came out that year to support us because it was the first year after COVID. Now, as I was kind of parsing through these stats at a US level, the one stat that really stuck out to me was that online sales were up around 10%. In-store sales were only up 1.7%. And I heard from small business owners across the US from some of the Facebook groups that I'm active in that some stores were way up and others were way down. If I could just double click on that, folks, if you are in retail, you need to lean into AI commerce. Use AI to be more strategic with your inventory, your pricing, and how you stay connected to your customer base. Do not get left behind. This year, I think, is a warning shot. Next year, AI could be the reason you win or lose. For our second update this week, I saw a story a couple days ago about some developers that found ad placeholders and references to sponsored experiences inside of the ChatGPT Android app. They were looking at the beta build of the app and they saw some code references to ad placements, ad targets, ad carousels, and something called the bazaar. I think we all know that ads are coming to AI, but this is the first confirmed instance that I can remember where it's starting to show up in the wild. I've always tried to build companies with a scale first, optimize second mentality. Get the customers, then solve for monetization. This is that, just kind of on steroids. I play the tapes back to 1998, late 1998, when Google launched its search engine. This was 2 full years before AdWords came out where they started to monetize it. And it was another 2 years after that before the auction-based model we know today came out. ChatGPT has 800 million weekly users, 2.5 billion with a B prompts per day. OpenAI doesn't want to be a chatbot. They want to be your operating system. They have made their product sticky so you use it. In my workshops, I asked the room, who here uses Facebook or Instagram? And 95% of people raise their hands. I then ask, how much do you pay for those services? The answer is 0. But how? How does Facebook and Instagram exist if you're not paying for it? Well, because you are the product. Facebook, Instagram, and soon to be ChatGPT are selling you. They're selling your data, your interests, and your click history. And honestly, it makes sense. Like, I love personalized recommendations. When I first saw an Amazon ad follow me around from site to site, like, you know what? I do need that vacuum cleaner. It's kind of creepy. But decades later, we're going to have product recommendations that are context aware in a way that no one has ever seen before. Pair that with shopping bots to help you order things while you don't have to wait in line at 4 a.m. for those great Black Friday deals. Folks, agentic commerce is coming, and it's coming very fast. I think this is a huge step in that direction, and I'm personally pretty excited for it. If you too are specifically interested in this topic of agentic commerce and marketing online, stay tuned for my upcoming chat with Jim Brown. He is the Chief Revenue Officer of Valvenmeter. They are a performance marketing agency with deep roots in SEO, web design, and pay-per-click. Jim and I are going to break down what an agency of the future looks like and how companies like yours and mine can skate to where the puck is going. For our third update this week, I'll be quick on this one, but I couldn't help but chuckle a little bit when I saw this. The USPTO, the Patent and Trademark Office, dropped new guidance on AI-assisted inventorship. The short version, AI can assist, AI can generate, AI can propose, but only a human can legally be listed as an inventor. They clarified this because AI-generated inventions are flooding patent applications. This is wild to me. AI is making up inventions and filing patents and flooding the zone to the point where the USPTO can't keep up. Imagine, the PTO is like a BMV, right? It's the last business day of the month. The place is packed. They're already behind. The lines are long. And then suddenly 100 self-driving cars show up and they want to register themselves. System is not built for that kind of volume or frankly, that kind of weirdness. Like, we are not prepared for this. Honestly, I don't really know much about how all this stuff works. I don't have any patents personally. But I mean, I laughed when I read that article because I guess I just assumed you had to be a human to invent something. It's wild to see what people are using AI to do. So, shameless plug for another future episode. I am going to sit down with my friend Brian McGinnis. He is a leading intellectual property attorney. He's a partner at Barnes & Thornburg, and he has always been on the cutting edge of this stuff. So you'll want to check back to hear him unpack some of these weird situations. He is the expert, and I can't wait to have that conversation with him in an upcoming episode. To close this news segment, I do want to touch on one other big thing in the AI news. And again, I don't have the time to dig into this as much as I'd like to, but I did have multiple people ask me at Thanksgiving about this. Project Genesis. So here's a quick summary. The Trump administration is reportedly working on a federal initiative to accelerate AI development in the U.S., framed as a national security and economic competition mandate, kind of like the Manhattan Project or the space race. The goal is to beat China, surpass globally, win, so to speak. Early reporting this week says they are trying to consolidate the federal AI infrastructure and talent and compute into something centralized where these groups can work together to quote unquote win, to beat the competition, to beat China. Now, I commend the concept and I love the idea of working together for the common good. And while I consider myself an AI optimist, I've also worked close enough to the sausage factory to know that ultimate power ultimately corrupts. I have concerns about this. The big tech leaders seemingly are mixed on it also. Sam Altman seems to be pro-Genesis project. Musk, I think, is against it. And others are kind of in various spots in that continuum. I had this thought earlier this week. I was watching season 2 of Survivor from way back in 2001. It's like the best season. Watching it with my kids. And this whole thing kind of reminds me of that. There are 2 tribes at the beginning of the show, 8 and 8. And they play as teams. And then at some point, basically halfway through the show, the teams merge, the tribes merge. And what was once a team sport now becomes an every person for themselves sport. There's only one winner at the end. And it's wild to me to see how humans change when the rules change. Now, I don't want to get too predictive here or prescriptive either. I don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen. But I have some concerns, right? I'm probably oversimplifying here, but having controls or input in all the world's information just doesn't feel like a really shareable thing. Decide who gets what? How do we split it up? How do we work together? I don't know. It just feels messy to me. But I guess my hope in all this is that we see major advancements to help humanity. The space race I mentioned earlier, we saw satellite technology, microchips, material science, STEM education reform. Really, a lot of the modern tech economy came from that. So I do wonder if a Genesis program could do the same, creating some breakthroughs in compute or robotics or cybersecurity, maybe even some changes in education. So as this Genesis project moves forward, I will continue to follow it and to add my commentary. If you're interested in following along, make sure to like and subscribe to this podcast. And that's all I'm going to cover today in the news segment of the show. We're going to take a quick break to thank our sponsors, our show sponsor, Techpoint. They are the reason this show can happen. And then when we come back, we're going to jump right into an interview with Lou and Tai Gerig. They are a father-son duo that runs a strategic communications firm called Gerig, based right here in Fishers. They have a storied history in Indianapolis, and we'll discuss how AI is impacting communications and how they are managing through these changes. Indiana's digital economy is changing fast, and Techpoint is helping lead the way. Techpoint drives Indiana's digital economy through talent, innovation, and community. Their new report, AI-Driven Skills for Indiana's Economy, explores how AI is reshaping our workforce. It's built for employers, educators, and job seekers who want to understand which skills are most in demand in our state's rapidly evolving economy. Download it today at techpoint.org/AI skills. Welcome back, and thanks again to Techpoint for sponsoring the Authentic and Agentic podcast. Now, before I get into the interview with Lou and Tai, I wanted to share a quick overview of how we got here. This is my first official interview for Authentic and Agentic, and honestly, it's a bit overwhelming. I'm a run into the fire kind of guy, scale first, optimize second, build the airplane in the air. I also like to challenge myself by asking why not. I tend to overdo it in some places. So prior to inviting Lou and Tai on as my first guest, I did put out a couple of requests to some others to see if they would be my first guest. First, I emailed Steve Wozniak. He's the founder of Apple. He's one of the smartest people I've ever met, and he has a huge heart for humanity. And second, I reached out to Mark Zuckerberg. Now, I've worked with some of the people in Mark's inner circle, so I thought he too would be a fun interview. Now, they both got back to me, and they were polite. Thanks, but no thanks, which really makes sense considering I didn't even have a website, a listener base, or a podcast for that matter. But hey, I'm going to keep swinging for the fences. And as we grow this thing, I am confident we're going to get some of the biggest names out there on this show. When I was telling all this to the show's producer, Chris Spangle, he's the digital director at the IBJ, I told him I had asked Woz and Zuck for an interview, and he told me the same thing he tells all new podcasters. Do the first 5 episodes with your friends. You're going to be nervous. You're going to make it weird. You're going to fumble. You're still finding your footing. I'm thankful for that wisdom. And with that, I actually got my first choice to join today's show. Lou and Tai are some of my favorite humans in the entire world. I spent the last 2 years of my career working hand in hand with these guys and their third partner, Alicia Thomas, all just great, great humans. They are exactly the type of people that you need to hear from. Now, this episode, this interview, isn't a technical teardown. It's a deeply human conversation. And honestly, I think that's where the gold is. I call this show Authentic and Agentic for a reason and in that order. So let's shift gears and let Lou and Tai take us into the moments that shaped how they think and how they lead authentically. Here we go with story time with Lou and Tai. Lou, Tai, thank you guys so much for joining us today in the studio. This is a makeshift studio. Mine's almost under construction, or almost finished, still under construction. So Chris, my buddy from the IBJ, is letting us use his studio today. So thank you guys for making the trip down here to Switchboard. I'm glad to have a chat.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
So we've been friends for a long while now. We had a chance to work together for a couple of years, done a lot of really cool things together. And one of the memories that I really cherish, every time I would go out to lunch with folks when I worked with you guys, I would call it story time with Lou, right? Because Lou had just the greatest stories. And he's so unassuming, right? You wouldn't know these stories unless you go to lunch with him and he tells them to you. And half the times
some of them were true.
That's right.
Some of them were true.
Yeah. So Lou, in all seriousness, you have had a storied career. For those that don't know you, you got to be the deputy press secretary in the White House under Ronald Reagan.
Well, it was called director of media liaison, and I was I worked very closely with Jim Brady.
Okay.
So I did whatever he asked.
And this was 80s, right?
Early 80s, 80, 81, 82.
Okay. And before that, you were with Senator
I
Lugar.
was press secretary to Senator Lugar,
Okay.
and Mitch Daniels was a young chief of staff, and he was as cheap back then as he was when he was governor.
The Blade, right?
Yes.
As the nickname.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I thought about in this conversation was, we talk a lot about AI in my world. It's all tech. It's all moving fast. In the early 80s, there was this technology really starting to come out called email, right? And then you had broadcast television, network television. These are all things that we kind of take for granted today, right?
Well, we really didn't have email in the early 80s at the White House. I mean, we had computers.
Sure.
And that was about it, but there was no email list at all. At that time you had a wire machine that would spit out the news, and you had fax machines, and that was about it. Fax machines that was the hot item in the late 70s and early 80s, and the phone.
So the phone, that's the landline phone.
Right, landline.
The cell phones weren't until much later, right?
We didn't have cell
So I
phones.
bring that up because as you think about like the history of all this technology, I mean, you've been through cell phones, email, social media, right?
Yes,
You've seen
right.
all this stuff. And so thinking through that, like, how does AI feel relative to some of these other things?
Well, thanks to you, I got involved in AI, and I use Claude, and I have found it to be very, very helpful, especially when I'm trying to organize my thoughts on a particular issue. And it gives me, I know what I want to say, but when I go to AI, it gives me a more complete description.
Sure.
And so what I found, though, with AI is that even though I ask for AI assistance, I still want to put it into my own words.
Sure.
So they know it's from Lou and not from
The bots.
Claude.
Sure. It's not from Uncle Claude.
And I think
it's from
going back to your point about the early 80s, and we've brought this up in our crisis communication training before, but just the speed at which
Right.
information travels, and
wild.
what it was like back then with the only news sources out there were broadcast media, the three or four major network broadcasts.
The nightly news.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And today we have all those people with mobile phones who see themselves as citizen journalists.
That's right.
And so it's just proliferated.
And you're getting
on a
stories
greater
in
scale.
real time from the source in
Right.
ways you didn't before.
That's right.
And that was the case when the president and Jim Brady were shot, in that we knew we had a short time span to get to Jim Brady's mom and dad, to get to somebody to get to them so they wouldn't see it on TV. But it wasn't very long, but we had time. If there'd have been today,
That time is gone today. That
Time
time
would be gone.
they're seeing it and they're getting 50
Right,
text
right,
messages instantly from the
right.
ground.
right.
That is wild to think about. Well, one of the things I've admired in working with you guys, Lou, you've always been behind the scenes, and Tai, you too, behind the scenes. And so I'm going to ask you about that. So you've been in some rooms that many people would never get a chance to be in, right? You don't talk about it. You keep your eyes focused, and you've always been kind of those servant leaders that just try to do the right thing, right? Try to serve other people and not take credit for it. So Tai, growing up, you watched your dad in a lot of these places, and you chose to follow along, right? I don't know if I'd call it the family business per se, because it's bigger than a family business, but I mean, you went down the same path, right? Of strategic communications.
When I was a teenager, I always joke that I would watch my dad go out in Bermuda shorts and a golf shirt in the summer months, and I'd say, "Where are you going?" And he'd say, "Oh, I'm going to work." And I'd say, "Oh, really? That's awesome. I want to do that someday."
Got it. So that was the path that took you into this world.
What I learned along the way is he was going to where his clients were and the influencers in the community at that time, and establishing relationships with them.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because to me, I mean, I'm watching AI. I spend all day, every day with the technology, right? Like sprinting into the fire, so to speak. And what I'm witnessing more and more is that the human part of it matters more than ever in a lot of ways, right? And so you guys have both been very relationship focused, really your entire careers that I've witnessed, and all the stories I've heard about you matches that, right? And so how does that fit into your worldview about how fast the world is moving now? We talked about how news is shortened, right? The news cycle is shortened. What about the human cycle? What about staying human in all of this?
Well, I think the difference is that there are so many platforms for people to use for their information that trying to get in front of somebody, you've got to do it real fast. You've
Get their attention.
Get their attention right away. And usually that has to do, and you help teach us this, is that you have to find out what their needs are and their point of where their issues are.
Okay.
So you've got to find that out right away. So you've got to do more homework before you have that initial engagement. And that's where AI comes in to be helpful.
Okay.
So that's the thing I have seen about working with clients and people. Once you get their attention and you come together for a discussion on what their issues are, then it's more the personal relationships, the trust.
So you see AI helping kind of break through the clutter and the noise.
Yes.
Such that you get their attention, and then you can have that human relationship
Do your homework
with them. Sure. Yeah, you can definitely be more equipped going into a conversation with someone. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I think a lot of our work harkens back to what people like the late Jim Morris and the late Dr. Gene Cease, who is a former founding chairman of
your firm,
Cease Gerig, lived by, and that was this idea of friend raising.
Friend raising. Is that a Dr. Cease original?
It was either Dr. Cease and or Jim
Morris. Okay,
we give them
coined
both
that phrase, and so I think it's a lot easier today to identify those people by the efficiencies that AI brings to you, and also any kind of before, during, and after the meeting of planning your way through that. And so I think using AI to guide you in that way has been pretty helpful.
Yeah, and I mean, so Lou, you've had a storied history in the strategic communication space and more of an analog world. You've seen email, you've seen social media, you've really kind of been a part of all those changes. Tai, you're leading the firm in a digital world, right? In an AI-based world. I mean, what does that look like? How does that even work?
Well, for a long time, I've thought once the inception of digital marketing came to the fore, and it really comes back to me. I'm still figuring it out.
Sure,
but
I think all of us are.
I think when I look at younger leaders of today, what it comes back to, how do they initially put their trust in someone? When it's I used to work at Barnes and Thornburg as their director of communications.
Okay.
You talk about bet the company, high stakes issues that could make or break your company. And what is it that a CEO, C-suite level thinks about when they're going to trust someone to help them, help guide them through an opportunity, or
risks also,
growth for growth, or a crisis, some sort of challenge.
Well, I think that's the conversation that a lot of leaders are having right now, right? Companies that I talk to of all shapes and sizes are trying to figure out where AI fits into their world, right? And I look at companies like Eli Lilly or Salesforce, some of the bigger companies here in Indianapolis, and they are global leaders in AI adoption, right? They are saying, hey, this is the future. I mean, I heard recently the folks at Lilly talked about becoming an agentic enterprise, right? Like leaning into AI in a big way. So what advice would you give to leaders in companies of all shapes and sizes about this? Like, how do you lean in and responsibly maybe, or stay a human while you lean in, right? Those are the questions I think a lot of leaders are trying to struggle with here.
I think it's finding those situations where you can engage with your friends, going back to the friend raising comment, your peers, to pick their brain on how they're using it in their own business. Personally, I would say buying the $20 a month
basic license at ChatGPT,
basic
or
license, and dipping your toe in it.
Just
Jayson, you've done.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because one of the things I try to encourage people that aren't actively using it is to you have permission to go do this, right? I'm not in a position to give anybody permission, but I've had dozens of people come up to me after my workshops and discussions and say, really felt like you gave me permission to do this, right? And so let me ask it this way. Humble Hoosiers, Lou, you've seen this your whole career. We don't like to take credit for stuff. I've had people tell me that it feels like they're cheating on a test when they use AI. How does that feel?
Well, I'm in the same boat, but I think, again, you use it. What I have found it brings some level of information that I had not thought about.
Sure.
And so when I'm making a presentation or working with a client, they are paying us to give us our best advice and counsel. And so it's imperative on us to use all the tools we can to give them that best advice and counsel. And AI is a part of the new program. It used to be in the encyclopedia. It used to be Google.
Sure.
But now it's AI. And again, it's one tool of several that you want to give to information.
Let me ask this question. Maybe this can frame the final questions here. But I think about writing a press release, right? And writing a press release used to be something that took a lot of effort and energy, and it still takes a lot of thought, right, to do correctly. But you can crank one out that's pretty good pretty quickly, right? And so I have to imagine that in the world of strategic communications, that changes things for you guys. So how do you, what do the humans in a strategic comms PR firm do, right, that AI doesn't? And where does that fit in a space where, like, when you look at the future of your industry, right, 2028, what does the PR communications industry look like?
Well, I think crafting the press release is that's the easy part. It's selling the story.
What do you mean by that when you say selling?
Selling it, it means pitching the story to the publications and reporters who are most interested in that news.
Sure. So keeping tabs on who cares.
That's right.
And making sure you get the message in front of them.
I have an old, I say 3 long years as a newspaper reporter. Some of the journalists out there will scoff at 3 years being a blip. But I had a mentor who he was an old news guy at heart. He's the publisher of the Peru Tribune, and he would always say the word "so what."
Yeah. That resonates today. I say that all the time.
Get to the heart of the matter and get to it now. And so when he'd read my lead paragraph that tried to pile in the who, what, when, where, he'd say, so what? Why should people care that the city council met on this night at City Hall?
Sure. Tell
them what impact this bit of information is going to have. And so I think AI helps you get pretty close to that first draft or two of a news release, depending on what your prompt is.
Sure.
You've taught us that the output is only as good as the input. And so being pretty thorough in prompting is pretty important.
Yeah, for sure.
I think a press release is again has changed because of the number of platforms that you can send that message out.
That's a great point.
So it's critical that no matter what you put out there, it has to be consistent all along the way. It has to be consistent in your emails, consistent in your Instagram post, Facebook post, LinkedIn post, and the news release. So
that's a great point.
And that's where all the thinking goes in is what do we want to say and how do we want to say it? And who are the important people? The audiences are still basically the same. And but how you get to those audiences has changed dramatically.
Well, and the thing that really stuck with me in that was the human side of the communication, right? So I can draft a press release in ChatGPT in 6 seconds, and I can hit the send button and see what happens, right? But it's kind of like
still hurts to hear that, by the way.
Well, I get it, and I can imagine, right? I mean, I think we're all grappling with that in our lives in the world.
Sure,
but it's like throwing it into the ether, though, right? Who cares? I think you mentioned from your mentor at the Tribune or whatever it was you worked at, where having the relationships with those reporters and understanding the beats they care about and understanding they're all busy too, right?
Right.
And so part of that is just packaging stuff in a great way and making sure that you're communicating effectively to get the message across. And it really matters. And, we've also seen the rise of influencers, Lou. I think you talked briefly about this with your, all the different platforms. Nowadays, you have guys with podcasts that have bigger audiences than news channels, right? And it's just a different world on that front also.
Well, you're absolutely right. And I think the job now is to try to find out who those influencers are and how they can best help you tell your story.
Sure. And they have deeper audiences, right? So one of the things that I love about podcasts, the reason I decided to launch one was because you get to build a community. It's an audience, right? They grow with you. And so I'm thrilled for all the upcoming guests we get to talk to and issues we get to unpack with those guests. But I'm just really grateful for you guys for coming and joining me today. Before we leave, I have one other thing. Lou, I prompted you earlier on this one, and I said, I'd love for you to do a little bit of story time with Lou. Are there any stories maybe you can share with us that are maybe unbelievable, or maybe we can pick if it's real or not?
There are several. I worked for Jim Brady. I was middle management. Jim and I met each other. We were both press secretaries on the Hill. And he gave me a graduate level class on how the media works on Capitol Hill. And then when he went to the White House, he called me and he said, I need some help down there. I need somebody to help cover me. And so I went down there and did a lot of work for him. The first day he took me over to meet the president, and President Reagan was very gracious. And he says, well, didn't I play you in a movie? And that's the first thing he said to me.
With a name like Lou Gerig,
And
he did play a baseball player in a movie.
No, he didn't play baseball.
Oh, okay.
He played
that's right, football. The Gipper,
Notre Dame.
Yeah, that's right. Didn't I play? That's clever.
So, but sure, there was a day of the assassination attempt, a day of the shooting, and all the things that happened, and being there when Al Haig burst through the built room and sweating and went to the podium to unannounced and uninvited, and told him that he was in charge. And I listened to him say that, and I thought, this guy just sealed his exit.
Wow, yeah.
But so it was interesting to be there that day and see how people responded, because ironically, we were at 4:00. We were to meet with the Secret Service to talk about what do you do if a crisis hits the White House. Well,
wow.
1:00
that day.
We're in 1:00.
Wow.
And so, just all kinds of great stories. interesting stories like that. I've been fortunate. I got to work with Mitch Daniels when he was chief of staff. I got to work with, Vice President Bush when he's vice president, and his favorite baseball player was Lou Gehrig. They both played first base. They were both left-handed, and he loved baseball. So I would say, though, the day of the shooting was probably
won't ever forget
because
that.
I had my boss who had brought me to the White House. That's the only reason I got to go, was because of him. And he was taken out. We didn't know if he was alive. We didn't know what the status was. But and then to see the president
Wow.
close to death, and so it's and there are all kinds of stories like the Jerry Parr, who was a Secret Service agent, who shoved the president in the car, dove on him, and they were going to take him back to the White House. But in the end, he noticed some blood coming from his mouth, which meant he knew he had an internal injury. And so he said, "We're not going to the White House. We're going to the hospital." Saved his life.
Wow.
So, and Jerry Parr later became a minister.
Wow.
And so his story was fascinating about how that changed his life. So it was, I guess the thing that was you really enjoyed was seeing people who did those kinds of things in the government.
Sure.
There are a lot of great people that work in the government, and I know some people like to take them on as not working full 40 hours a week, but that's, I saw people.
It's never been
working.
my experience.
Yes.
As you talk about all that stuff, Lou, I'm future minded, and I'm thinking about where all this is headed. And I mean, those are all deeply human stories. Those are stories about the greatness of people, right? And that, to me, that's why I call myself an AI optimist. We think about how it's going to replace jobs and cause, an upending of things, and who knows what's going to happen, right? But it ain't doing that. Right. It's not jumping on presidents and, communicating with families and those sorts of things. I mean, there's just so much there to unpack.
We've gone through revolutions before when they got rid of the horses for a thing called the automobile.
Sure.
Everybody thought this world's coming to an end.
Sure.
You've seen it in agriculture. You've seen it in every business that's succeeded.
Yeah.
They've had to make changes because of some technology change.
Well, I think that's a great, and I mean, we could talk forever probably, but I think that's a great recap on that. And that drives me too, right? That's a big part of why I wanted this podcast to exist. I listen to a lot of AI podcasts that are about the technical stuff, and we will get into some technical stuff on some future episodes, but I wanted to start with you guys about a deeply human conversation, right?
Sure.
I think that is really what this is all about. And we're all figuring this stuff out together. So Tai, I'm going to leave it with this, the final question. And I'm going to intend to ask all of my guests this. So hold me to it in future episodes, but 2028, right? It's 2025 now. We're recording this. 2028. What does a PR strategic communications firm look like in 3 years? I think 10 years is unreasonable because the world's moving so fast, but in 3 years, what do you see?
Well, I think relationships will be even more important in connecting with your key stakeholders. I think you're going to see more, and you're already seeing it with the global PR firms, but the idea of generative engine optimization and how do you make sure your clients
show up in the results.
So I could see PR firms hiring more people to help do that. I think media relations, thought leadership will be more important. You can create a lot of content with AI, but the secret sauce is really how do you make it more authentic?
That's great.
So that you can start the drip towards a trusting relationship with whoever your audiences are.
Yeah. So last thing, tell our audience about how they can connect with you guys. How does one get on Lou's lunch schedule to solve for story time with Lou? So Gerig is the firm.
Gerig is the firm. We're at www.gerig.com.
Perfect. Lou and Tai, Gerig. Tai's active on LinkedIn too, and all the other platforms.
Right.
But and these guys know literally everyone. So if you don't know how to get a hold of them directly, just ask around.
Let me just add one thing. Nate Feltman of the IBJ just did an interview with Pete Ward, who is the chief operating officer for the Colts. Pete was a part of the Colts coming in '84.
Yeah,
he was
on the ground.
So he's been on the ground.
Yeah.
And there were several other options for the Colts. They could have gone to Arizona. They could have gone somewhere in Florida, and it ended up in Indianapolis. And Pete had never been to Indianapolis, but he said the one thing about Indianapolis that was different than any other city was they were can-do. He said the kinds of things that we needed were done immediately. And I think that says a lot about the people that are in our community, the causes, and the people that don't want they're not here for the credit. And so, the Jim Morrises of the world, the Dr. Ceases of the world,
the Lou Gerigs
the
of the
David
world,
Fricks of the world. So I just think that was telling about our community, that we don't have the mountains, we don't have the water, don't have the oceans, but we've got people that really care.
Yeah. It's a great end. Appreciate you guys being here.
Thank you.
I'm going to, after this, if you guys move over to my YouTube channel, we'll be doing breaking down some tactical how-tos every week at the end of every episode. And so go check it out on YouTube. It's under Jayson Manship. You can also find it at jasonmanship.com or authenticandagentic.com. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys again next week. Man, what a fun discussion. In all seriousness, if you ever get a chance to grab coffee or lunch with these guys, take it. Tai is everybody's best friend, and Storytime with Lou is, to this day, still one of my all-time favorite pastimes. His stories are unbelievable. Next week, I'm sitting down with Jim Brown. He's the Chief Revenue Officer at Valvenmeter. They are one of the top performance marketing companies here in Indy. Jim's career has been amazing, and you're going to want to hear from him about how digital marketing and agency life might look in coming years. AI is changing everything in that space, and Jim has a history of being on the front end of big things. SEO, blogging, structured family time, even true crime. His resume is one of the coolest you'll find, and you are absolutely going to love our conversation. Before you go, every week at the conclusion of each interview, I am directing you to my YouTube channel. The link is in the show notes, or you can just search Jayson Manship on YouTube. That's Jayson Manship, just like it sounds on YouTube. And on this YouTube channel, I will show you how I build with and how I use AI. This week, I'm showing you how news aggregation has changed for me. I used to rely heavily on Google News and Google Alerts. Then I used X and Facebook. Now I really love Perplexity's Director and ChatGPT Pulse. Hop on over to my YouTube channel and see if these new tools could help you stay ahead in a noisy world. I hope to see you again next week. Cheers.